Hi, everybody. It's Kori Rae. I am so excited to be here with you today. So, as you can tell, this is Candid Kori. This is me. Of course, we've been going through this entire week speaking to all these amazing speakers. I'm going to give a round of applause to everybody. It has been transformational for me getting to speak to these amazing people who have literally dedicated their lives to making a difference for women and in their health. And, you know, those of us that have been challenged with PCOS, it can feel so alone. The fertility process can feel so lonely. And just seeing, from my heart, like seeing all these people who have literally devoted themselves to this work is truly heartmending. I wanted to get an opportunity to share with you a little bit about my story. If you had a chance to participate in our masterclass, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you were able to sit there and we had a little fun. It was really great. But if you didn't have a chance to do that, there's something that is really healing about telling your story. And if this is something that has been difficult for you because maybe you didn't feel seen or maybe you didn't feel like it was safe to talk about your story, I want you to know that sharing your story, at least this is my belief, sharing our story is how we connect. It's how we see the commonality, the threads that bind us, that tie us together in um, relation and in common ground. So that way we can have communion. We can have this connection to each other that we otherwise maybe wouldn't have because we were kind of living in a place of fear. And so here's my story. So like so many of you, I grew up in, the Midwest, eating very Midwest food, all the fried chicken and potatoes. And I knew as a child that I kind of struggled with my weight. I was always kind of chubby. I was a dancer. I loved dancing. I was in a dance group for a long time as a child and a dance troupe at church. And then as I got older, I joined a dance company. And the thing is that I didn't look like any of the other dancers. I developed breasts very early. I was 13 years old and I was wearing a D cup. Like I always had a huge chest, and it's kind of like this running joke, but it was definitely like coupled with a big ass, and I was just kind of chunky in the middle, and but I danced anyway, and but it was quite apparent to me that I struggled with my weight more than my friends. So as far as my cycles go, like I started cycling when I was 12 and I did not have regular cycles. I had talked to my mom about it, but she didn't seem too concerned. My doctor didn't seem too concerned. We also noticed that as I aged, right, and progressively got older, the acne got worse and worse. By the time I'm my senior year, I had cystic acne all over my face and my back. It was very painful. And I also got cysts, like actual cysts. I have a scar right here. You can see right there. As well as, I've got scars all over, all over my face. And that was really hard. I didn't understand um, why that was my thing. I didn't know that, um, why my face had to look like that. So I joined the military when I was 19, and they put me on birth control. And they were like, well, this will help your acne. If it doesn't work, then we'll do Accutane. But I had also done many topical, things. But nobody had ever talked to me about diet. Nobody ever, checked for allergies or anything like that. And so I just, I went on birth control. I was sexually active at the time, so that seemed like the smart thing to do. I wasn't, didn't want to get pregnant when I was moving to England. I got stationed in England, and so I went on birth control and didn't know anything about it. Didn't know anything else about my health. And fast forward 9 years, met the guy that I wanted to have babies with, and so I came off of birth control. And 3 months went by, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months went by, and I didn't have a cycle. And I was starting to get worried. So I went to my doctor, who was in the military, my military doctor. She was a nurse practitioner. And she said, usually we don't refer people to fertility until they've been trying for a year. But since you haven't had a cycle for 6 months, I'm going to go ahead and refer you. So they referred me to fertility, and I was devastated. Absolutely devastated. My mom, right? I grew up in a house where my mom could basically look at my stepdad and get pregnant. Like literally, she was like a freaking rabbit. I'm the oldest of 9. I have a blended family, but both my mom and my stepmom both like could get pregnant very easily. I'm the oldest, so I was the first one who was going to be having babies. So I had assumed, I was like, I'm not going to have any problems. Why would I have any problems getting pregnant? Right? Most of us go into this thinking we're not going to have any problems getting pregnant, right? Unless we were diagnosed as teenagers. But even then, like, unless somebody told you that you were going to have problems, even if you were diagnosed with PCOS, like, so I go to fertility, they run some tests, and I get diagnosed with PCOS. I had no idea what that meant. And honestly, they didn't really tell me what that meant. They just said, well, you're going to need medications to ovulate. So here you go. So they started me on Clomid, and gave me progesterone so I could have a cycle, and then Clomid, and that made me feel like absolute garbage. I told them I couldn't do it. I said, if I have to keep doing this medication, I won't do it. I'll either find another way, or I couldn't. The quality of life just was not worth it for me. So we ended up switching over to letrozole, to Femara, and took a couple tries, but we also paired it with an IUI, just to be sure. And by the sheer grace of God, I was able to get pregnant with my daughter, Asen. She's 9 now, by the way, and she's a spunky little thing. But that whole process was 2 years. Of course, I tell it in 20 seconds, but that whole process takes months and months of cycles and tracking and trying to figure out. And in the meantime, my marriage was my brand new marriage. We'd just gotten married, was practically in the toilet. He wanted to support me, but I was so distant. It wasn't that we were kind of fighting, but there was just this wall, because I felt so alone. I felt so broken. I felt so like the narrative that was going in my head the whole time was that I am less than a woman, that, why would my husband want to be with me when I can't even fucking get pregnant? And it stuck around. I hated my body. I hated my womb, my cycles. I was like, why can't you just fucking work? Why can't you just do what you're supposed to do? Why me? I didn't understand. I didn't understand at the time. Um, I went through a relatively uncomplicated pregnancy, but towards the end, things got a little bit more complex. Asen ended up being breech, and so I ended up having to have a scheduled cesarean section when I was planning on having a physiological natural childbirth, which I had been a doula. My mom had had 2 kids at home. Like, that's how I was raised. You know, I was raised in physiological childbirth, so I knew very, very well that I was capable of doing that. And that's how I grew up. And another, bullet hit. And so I ended up having a scheduled C-section with my daughter. And so that was like another nail in the coffin of my trauma and hurt and brokenness. And it wasn't until many, many years later that I started to unpack all of that. What I didn't realize at the time while I was going through that process is that all of those feelings of resentment and hurt and shame and loathing and hatred towards my body was literally just getting stored in my body. I mean, I held on to it. I held on to it, and I carried that shit like a like a rucksack. I carried it on my back. I carried it in my womb. I carried it in my heart. And I built so many walls around myself that I didn't even recognize my body. I didn't even recognize who I was. Motherhood distracted me from some of that, but there were still feelings of inadequacy that were showing up as a mom that I didn't realize now. I mean, now I have perspective and could see where those came from, but those inadequacies were carried into my motherhood and also carried into continue to carry on in my relationship. So those walls that we built during that time affected our intimacy during while we were trying to get pregnant and afterwards. Ultimately, we ended up in a divorce. And so I've been raising Asen on my own. But the interesting thing is when you finally come to the point and you realize that this stuff has to get looked at, it just all comes all at once. It's taken many years for me to rebuild my relationship with my body, to rebuild my relationship with my menstrual cycle, and to let go of the shame that I felt during that time that I experienced a decade ago. And now be at a place where I feel liberated from that. And I actually have a healthy relationship with myself and my body and my menstrual cycle. And enough so that I've been able to implement changes in my life that help support my health. See, I went to, through this old trauma, right, kind of led me on this path of wanting to become a midwife. And so I went to nursing school to do that. And it was interesting because I had to learn about self-advocacy. I had to learn about health in a bachelor's program to become a nurse. Like, I didn't even realize that PCOS increases your risks of having type 2 diabetes or even the insulin component until I was in nursing school. This was not something my doctors talked to me about at all. I've been in the medical, like I said, I was in the military healthcare system, and then I've been in the VA healthcare system ever since. And this is not something that was talked about at all with me, that I could develop type 2 diabetes, that I have a higher risk of doing that if I and if I don't support my blood sugar and my insulin at this point. We already started to see some issues. All my PCOS symptoms had kind of gone away after pregnancy. I was able to lose weight easily. I wasn't having any issues with acne. I was breastfeeding my daughter. I breastfed her for 4.5 years. And so during that time, I basically didn't have a cycle almost that whole time. I don't even think I had my first cycle until after 18 months after having her. So I was, but yeah, I was able to lose weight, all the baby weight, and then some. It was amazing. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is fabulous. Like, I felt amazing. I was doing a lot to support my health physically and mentally and spiritually, like starting to really dig into that. And the thing is like all of a sudden things made sense in my life. And then life crashed around me once again. And I ended up a single mom. And after I weaned Asen, and then I was in nursing school, and then COVID, basically I gained all that weight back and then some. I was at my heaviest, my heaviest weight. I was basically at almost my heaviest weight when I was pregnant. And so, and it didn't take very long. I mean, I basically put 80 pounds on in 3 years, 3 or 4 years. All along, I was having very painful menstrual cycles and irregular menstrual cycles. And we were concerned about, there was some periods when I was, periods of time when I was not having a cycle for 6 months. And of course, my practitioners are concerned about that because that greatly increases your chances of having endometrial cancer or cervical cancer, or excuse me, ovarian cancer. So I obviously was concerned about that, but I knew I didn't want to go back on birth control. But it's like I felt stuck. I was like, how am I gonna take care of myself? How am I going to do this? And so I had to take it upon myself to figure out what is going on with me. Thankfully, I was able to dive into this world of PCOS and see that there's such a thing called a root cause. This is I've been diagnosed with PCOS for over a decade, and I never heard the idea of a root cause. And I'm a healthcare professional. I never heard of the idea of a root cause until 2.5 years ago, and it freaking blew my mind that this isn't something that we talk about ever. I mean, it's definitely becoming much more mainstream now, and I'm so grateful for all the influencers and people that are putting out the information to social media to bring awareness to this condition. I'm so grateful for them. I'm so grateful for that because hopefully, and things like this, like the summit, because this is what it's about. It's about supporting each other, and telling each other that we have options in taking care of our health. Because I always felt powerless. I felt powerless to take care of myself. All the doctors would tell me was lose weight or put me back on birth control. I'm not hating on doctors. Please don't think that. I love them and they have their place. At the same time, we have to do better at supporting women's health. I knew when I went through nursing school that I wanted to be an advocate for women's health, that I wanted to be an educator, that I wanted to bring this information to my rural town in Kingman, Indiana. I live in the middle of nowhere where the closest hospital is an hour away. Closest doctor's 30 minutes away. We don't have healthcare support out here. I wanted to bring awareness to people everywhere that they can manage their health, that there are things that they can do to help support these conditions that they have. And that it's not just about diet. It's not just about exercise. It's not just about sleep. It's all of these things. And it's also your spiritual health. How connected are you to what you consider the divine, or how you connect to your beingness or to your aliveness, in whatever way that is? How do you express your emotions? Do you process your emotions, or do you hold them inside? How well is your communication and your boundaries with those that you're in relationship with? What about your mental health? Are you getting support through therapy and coaching and all of these things to help you manage these very, very difficult emotions and mental health taxes that come about through having PCOS and or fertility issues. I have made it my mission to bring these questions to the public, because the more curious we get about our own health, the more curious we get about how we can support ourselves, the more curious we get about our own love, then this is how we can live the best lives possible. This is how we can thrive. We're not just surviving, we're thriving at that point. And our menstrual cycles, our health, our wellness, our mental health, our emotional connection to people and to ourselves, and our spiritual connections, these all matter. They especially matter when you're going through difficulties like fertility. I know I am, for one, like this summit has been so healing for me, because I didn't have this. I can't say that I wish that I had this. I certainly know that had I had the availability of information, I would have chosen a different path than what I did. I would have given myself some space to be able to work on some of my habits that were not supporting my health. I also would have worked on managing my stress, because that was the biggest component for me, was my stress, my weight, and the stress that came with the weight, being in the military. So my hope is for you, out of anything that you've taken from this summit this week, is that you build the team that's right for you. Build the healthcare team that's right for you. Work with the people that supports you and that feels right here. That feels right in your heart, that feels right in your gut, that feels right. And not just working with the people because you think that's your only option. There's so many amazing providers out there, healthcare, functional medicine, naturopathic doctors who are specializing in fertility, registered dietitians, personal trainers, and then, also coaches and mental health professionals. These people are here to help give you the tools that you need to create a whole balanced life. My prayer for you is that you find and reach out to the ones that touched you the most, that you felt the most connected with, and start working with them. So that way you can have your best life now while you're trying to get pregnant, and in the future, because your future life matters too. Your health now matters. Your health in the future matters. So that way, when you have these things that you're longing for, this family and things like that you're able to be there for them, that you're able to play with your kids, or have a long life full of wellness and joy and peace, that you're able to have a fulfilling relationship with your spouse or partner. All these things, but most importantly, of all these things, most important is that you have a healthy relationship with yourself. Because at the end of the day, that relationship is the most important one. You're born with you and you die with you. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being here at the summit, for showing up for yourself, for giving love and supporting yourself the best that you can right now. may you find the joy and reclaim that joy for yourself, because every day is an opportunity for you to live in your highest truth, for you to shine your light, for you to have joy now, even while going through such challenging things. My hope is for you is that you see all of your emotions as this kaleidoscope of colors that makes the beautiful canvas that is your life, that makes the art that is your life. I love you all so much. I hope you've learned something. Please reach out if you have any questions or you would like to know how to contact or work with myself or any of the other experts that we featured here in the summit. Reach out to me. I'd be happy to get you connected with them. Make sure you take advantage of all the free resources that have been available to you. And if you're, like I said, if you have any questions or just want to chat or anything about the summit, then my inbox is open. You can find me on Instagram at Kori Rae Wellness. You can also shoot me an email at koriraewellness@gmail.com. I'm honored and would be blessed to be able to speak with you. And even if it's just to say thanks, I appreciate it all. So I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and may you reclaim your joy during this fertility journey. Take care.